Okay, so we have the enemy being the spawner so that we can instantiate the enemy. And what we want to do now is let's start playing around with, as you progress, increasing the difficulty. And I think I'm going to use public void increase. So what we're going to do is if score, let me actually make it an if statement, if score is greater than or equal to score to increase difficulty, the first thing we need to do is increase difficulty so that it doesn't keep doing what we wanted to do. Well, so wherever we put in after this, so it'll meet this condition and then increment up this condition, then increment up so it just doesn't keep firing what's underneath here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look for our enemy. And I think I'm going to go ahead and just declare the enemy in here. So game object, find enemies, and we're probably going to have to do this, make it a array is equal to is going to be equal to game object, find objects with tag, and the tag we're looking for is enemy. And then now I guess this makes it a little bit more difficult because we have the possibility of spawning multiple enemies, so we just can't look for one. So what we're going to do is create a for loop. A for loop is a basic algorithm well, let's talk about what the algorithm is. An algorithm is just any type of mathematical function that has a point of termination. So a for loop looks for how many objects we have in this array, and whenever you see this indicates an array. An array is a group of objects. And so it's going to look for how many objects do we have in this array, if it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 1. And then we're going to cycle through all of them and go to all their components and increase it. So what I'm going to have to do is for int I is equal to 0, and then I, and while I is less than, find enemies dot length, and then we increment I. Now, what we're going to do is this. We're just going to, at this point, increment up the speed. We're just going to, and not the speed, we're actually going to increment this thing right here, increment speed, and we're just going to double this value. So find enemies, I, dot get component, we're getting our script component, enemy movement, dot speed increment is plus or equal to its same value. So every time this hits, this is going to increment this up by this amount. This amount gives you a slow increment up. If I was to go higher, then it's going to become unmanageable very quickly. And then after we do this, we leave here, and then our score to increase difficulty, I've already stated up here is 1,000. So then we're just going to double that. And this is going to be plus or equal 1,000. So now the new score to increase difficulty is now 2,000. And then once we hit 2,000, it goes to 3,000. Once it hits 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. So it's not going to be a huge increment up, but it will increase the speed of it. Now, let's do, and I think what I'm going to do is this. No, I can't do a start because it's not going to do that. I'm going to switch. No, I can't do that either. Oh, yes, I can. I'm going to drop this in here so that I'm not constantly looking for this. So once this fires, we go through here, we get all that information, we do this, and then we do that. But the one thing I didn't want to do here is have it constantly looking for this, because that's taking away, that's decreasing my efficiency, and that's taking away from my resources. So I only need to do this once. But if I have this here, and the reason why I'm saying that, and I'm jumping all over the place, is I'm going to end up putting this, if we're playing the game, here. So if I'm playing the game, that means every frame is going to run this. But I don't really need to fire anything in here until this condition is met. And if I had this outside of here, it will constantly look for find the enemies. And I only wanted to do that once this condition is met. I could do something else, but that's the reason why I moved it. Now, if score is greater than or equal to score to spawn new enemy, we only have one spawner, okay? There's only one that exists. So I don't have to use an array this time, and I don't have to use a for loop. So it's going to be game object, and I'm not going to find the tag as well. I'm not going to find the tag, I'm just going to look for the name of the object. Find enemy spawner is equal to game object, not game state, game object dot find, and I need the exact name of my object and the spawner. Glad I looked at it. So things I can't copy. And then what we're going to do is this. We're going to grab this script component, spawn enemies, and then I'm going to create my script component. Now, because this is uppercase compared to lowercase, this is not the same thing as this, even though we're going to tell this to become this. So this is our script component. This is the variable that we're creating, and I just changed the case to make it different so that you know what it is, but it's not this, if that makes sense. So spawn enemies, and then our variable spawn enemies with capital S is going to be equal to find the spawner, get component. We're going to grab our script component, spawn enemies. We're going to cast it as a script, and it's the same thing we did with the enemy when we explode it, so that we can tell it to reset its values. Spawn enemies, and that's going to be, and then we're going to grab our public game object, spawn enemies for game, semicolon. And then once we have done that, spawn enemies, let's plus or equal to score to spawn new enemies is going to be plus or equal to the original score, which is 5,000. And we hit build. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So let's go ahead and kind of debug this. Let me go ahead and increase my lives. Score. Let's go ahead and make this 500 for right now. And let's make this a little bit more obvious. And actually, I don't need that in there right now. This can be equals because that's plus for right now. And in here, all right, here we go. We're going to increase it by 3. This is just to debug it. Then I'm going to set it back once I'm good to go. So you can see it is working. So I did that so you can see it, but that's not what we want because that becomes very difficult very quickly. Now, let's test out the ability to spawn. So we know that our ability to spawn is set at 5,000. So I'm going to set this at 4,500. And we have 2 now. We're getting close to the score to win the game. And then we can reduce it, we can say 2,000. But there we are. Now, if I spawn 2 enemies on the screen, or any enemies, and I reset the game, I do have an issue I need to address. And that issue is the simple fact that those enemies are existing with those values, and I'm about to spawn another one as soon as it starts again. So what I need to do is, 1, tell this if I reset to spawn an enemy. The other one I need to do is tell it, before we spawn a fresh enemy, destroy the old enemies with their values in there. This is how we're going to do it. And since we already have code here, it's not going to be that bad. So what we're going to do, void spawn new enemy. If I hit the right key, and I'm just going to grab this. Now, the other thing I could do is, instead of this, I could just put this in its own little function, so that when I need it for other things, I have it. And then just put this in here, and that will make my life slightly easier because it's doing the same thing. And then what I can do is once we reset our player values, spawn a new enemy. And then that new enemy's value should be reset. The other thing I need to do before I spawn a new enemy is destroy all of my old enemies. So I am going to create a new void, destroy old enemies. And what we're going to do is I am going to take this, I'm going to copy it. Now, what I need to do is, this is not what I'm doing now, but I need this part right here. I'm going to get rid of this one. Now, we already used destroy explosions. So this is what we're going to do. So we're going to go destroy. And what we're going to do is paste in find enemies, and then their array, I. So if it's 1, it's fine. If it's 2, that's fine. And then that should be it. I don't have to wait a couple of seconds. I don't have to put that in there. And before we spawn a new enemy, we're going to destroy all the old ones. Then what we need to do is reset a couple of values. And then we got to reset our score to increase difficulty. That's going to reset back to 1,000. And then we need to reset the score to spawn a new enemy. And that's going to go back to 5,000. Now, let's do a test. I am going to do this. I want to spawn some enemies. And then I'm going to pause it, and then I'm going to increment up to the score to win the game. And then we're going to take this up to 95. You win. Play again. Start game. It disappears. We spawn a new one. We hit pause. We're good to go. So we have everything working as for our base functionality. Let's do something easy. Let's grab some audio. And we already have an explosion that we used. No, that was definitely last. So I want to find an explosion. Didn't we do an explosion for this class? No, we haven't. I'm thinking of another class. Okay, never mind. That works. And the next one I want to find is just some sound loops.
Is it possible to make a script for the equalizer of the sound to kind of sound slightly different every time? Same sound, but just messed with?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
I haven't done it personally, but I'm pretty sure you can.
Okay.
Well, okay. Since we talked about that, that brings up one more thing we can do. That's easy. Let's bring up. That's a little long. All right. Now let's go ahead and get just a quick sound loop as well. I guess if the world is coming to an end, might as well want some easy listening jazz. All right. So we have this, and what we're going to do is on the enemy. I guess we can put in this script. We're going to tell the enemy that you have. We're going to let it randomly pick between two different explosions. So every time we hit, it's going to pick, and we might also have to wrap that into the game object. So we need public audio source, and we want, let's see if we can make this an array. Explosions, audio, audio source, explosions, clip. And what we're going to do, we'll create an int, name it what, explosion, sound. And what we're going to do, once it hits, and you know what, let's just go ahead and do this. So we'll create a public void play explosion sounds. And what we're going to do is our explosion clip, well, play explosion what sound is going to be equal to a random dot range, and that's going to be between 0 and the length of this array here. And then what we're going to do is tell explosion clip to be equal to explosion audio dot what explosion sound yes, and then we'll tell explosion clip to play. And let's see if I have an error. Oh, sorry, I need to open and close parentheses. Alright, cool. Now, the thing that kind of, I guess, sucks about this is I need to make my two explosion sounds children of my enemy, so they're not necessarily direct game components. So I'm just going to drag this in here for right now. I'm going to grab my audio. So that's my explosion sound. We'll do that. I'm just dragging in my game space. and I'm going to nuclear. We have both of those, and I'm just going to parent them to my enemy. There. So these are children of this. So when this is destroyed, these are destroyed. Now these two, we don't want to play on the wake, and we definitely don't want this to loop. Now to update my prefab, all we're going to do is apply changes to prefab. And my prefab, if I go to enemy now, you can see we have those two sounds associated with it. The next thing I need to do is we have here explosion audio. I have two objects, so I'm going to type in two, and I'm going to drag these in there. And then I'm also going to apply changes to prefab so that that's in my prefab as well. Now once I've done that, we want to delete. And the first thing we're going to do test out is we are going to just play this once we hit a base. And probably we need to play this before we reset the enemy position. Which it really is not going to matter because they're 2D objects. All these are 2D sounds. And let's test it. So it's a random between the two. And we can add more. Now the other thing we need to do is once we hit the enemy, we need to tell it to do the same thing. So what we're going to do is game controller. We're going to go all the way back up here to our enemy movement and reset the position. And we can use this to get that public function that we just created for our audio. Play sounds, go up here, game controller, get that, there we go. I just want to see one thing. I want to make sure I have this in here. Just enough I'm thinking about right now. Oh yeah, we did. That's fine. And we don't necessarily need a ground to do that. All right. So we have audio in here. We have explosions. The last little thing I want to do with my explosion, and that's my prefab, is I'm going to reduce its lifetime. So duration, probably going to break that down, make it 0.75, maybe even 0.50, and I might reduce its lifetime to 0.50. So it's a little bit faster. And there we go. And then we hit save. Oh, let's do one last thing. Now, and that is we need our smooth jazz. And we're going to play on the wake and we're going to tell it to loop. there we go. Save your scene. And we're not done with this yet.